The word alien suggests a creature that is foreign to this earth, but these so-called aliens can be found in our oldest recorded history, and history tells us that they have ruled over humanity as if we are some sort of livestock to them. The most common themes are that we are their slaves, and they enslave us by keeping us spiritually ignorant via psychological methods and genetic engineering. Sumeria existed about 7,000 years ago, and the Sumerian texts are perhaps the oldest written record in the Western world. They describe a race of creatures known as the Anunnaki, who were described as gods that traveled the heavens in flying orbs. They were interested in gold and modified the human species to effectively mine it for them. During this same time period, the Neanderthals mysteriously vanished, and modern man first appeared. This is one of the greatest enigmas of evolution theory, and can perhaps be explained by the Sumerian texts. According to the Sumerians, the Anunnaki gods practiced genocide to control the human population, the same way a farmer culls their livestock. And it was written that there were two factions of the Anunnaki. One side wanted to keep us spiritually ignorant as a method of control, and the other believed this was immoral and argued against it. As a result of this dispute, the Anunnaki attempted to destroy the entire human race with a great flood. And when that failed, they spread humanity across the earth and gave them different languages to keep them divided. This story is not only retold in the Bible, it exists in several other cultures worldwide. In Alaska, Egypt, Japan, and South America, it is taught that their ancestors were transported there thousands of years ago by the gods. The biological engineering of humans, population control, and the opposing factions on the subject of keeping mankind spiritually ignorant are three themes that continue throughout all of history and into the current day. One of the greatest mysteries on Earth is the construction on the Giza Plateau in Egypt. The official story is demonstrably false. The water erosion found on the Sphinx tells us that it is at least 10,000 years old, and nobody can explain how the Great Pyramid was constructed, or for what purpose. The ancient Egyptian writings tell us that they were living under the rule of alien gods that looked somewhat human, who traveled through the heavens in flying ships. The Great Pyramid is encoded with redundant advanced mathematics such as pi, the golden ratio, and the speed of light, and it would have made an ideal marker for aerial navigation. The four sides precisely aligned to the four compass points, and it was originally covered with a casing of reflective white limestone, which has since been excavated and would have allowed it to be visible from a great distance. It even has subtle indentations on each of its four sides, giving it a total of 8 precise compass directions. The story of human secret societies working for these non-human demigods most notably began in ancient Egypt. An organization known as the Mystery Schools was established, wherein the pharaohs and priests were trained in secret to act as middlemen between mankind and the ruling class demigod species. And it would appear as if they were deceived in these mystery schools, for this is where the pharaohs were taught to mummify their bodies and bury wooden boats as a way of achieving immortality. The mystery schools taught the high priests and pharaohs a distorted form of spiritual knowledge and suppressed all of it from the public. Egyptian hieroglyphics portray these non-human gods wearing aprons, and the Egyptian high priests wore aprons as well, presumably as a symbol of loyalty to the gods and authority over the populace. In around 2200 BC, the Melchizedek priesthood aprons were made of white lambskin, which was later adopted by the Freemasons, who still wear them today. The eyes of the Sphinx, as well as the Great Pyramid, line up with the star Sirius as it rises on July 23rd, which is when Bohemian Grove has its secret society ritual every year. Several ancient structures are aligned with both Sirius and Orion, which is where many ancient legends say these creatures originated from. The Egyptian hieroglyph for Sirius was the obelisk, the dome, and the five-pointed star, symbols that are still used today by several secret societies. If mankind was scattered throughout the earth to keep them divided, then it seems as if the mystery school priest class was given the job of managing over them at the behest of the alien gods. It was in the ancient world that mankind became too rebellious to be ruled over by these demigods, and so humans were recruited to act as middle management, much like the Judas goat, a goat trained to lead sheep to slaughter while its own life is spared. These people were trained in secret societies and seduced with power to betray their own people. The word Elohim in the Bible is plural. It does not refer to a single god, but rather the gods. The main god in the Old Testament, the one worshipped by the Hebrews, was a character named Jehovah, which comes from the Hebrew word Yahweh, or Yod-He-Vav-He. Yahweh is described as traveling through the sky in a ship, and when this ship would land on Mount Sinai, the mountain was covered with smoke, because the Lord descended upon it in fire. Yahweh had threatened to kill anyone who approached his landing site. Only a select few were permitted to see it, including Moses, who had attended the mystery schools under Akhenaten, the father of monotheism, which is likely why Moses pushed the idea that Yahweh was the one true God. But Ezekiel managed to see the landing site up close, and he described Yahweh's ship as being a pale yellow metallic structure from which creatures emerged that sparkled like burnished brass. Yahweh demanded obedience and slaughtered those who rebelled. He ordered his loyal soldiers to commit and burn cities to the ground. According to Joshua, Yahweh manipulated those he wanted to be into fighting the Hebrews, who he then ordered to exterminate the opposition. A biblical account of Machiavellian divide and conquer tactics. The Bible is full of non-human entities, the Nephilim, several races of giants, and the Leviathan. The Greek translation of the Old Testament refers to the Leviathan as being a dragon. In the Torah, Yahweh is also described like a dragon. He could breathe fire from his mouth and set ablaze the foundations of the mountains. Smoke went up from his nostrils. He had pinions and wings, and he lived in a mountain. But when he lived on the surface with the Hebrews, he lived in a giant tent. And when the door to this tent was opened, thick plumes of smoke would appear. Yahweh also demanded a regular supply of virgins and gold. According to folklore, this is the description of a dragon. The story of the dragon exists in the ancient history of several cultures across the earth. From South America to Japan, people were said to have sacrificed virgins to dragon gods. And these dragon gods were said to be the progenitors of the ruling class. According to Chinese history, the first humans were created by a half-dragon, half-human called Nukua. The Yi King says that dragons and humans once interbred. The Japanese also claim to be descendants of reptilian gods, who once interbred with humans and produced reptilian-human offspring. Quetzalcoatl, one of many gods worshipped by the Aztecs, was known as the feathered serpent. Around 1500 BC, ancient India was invaded by foreigners known as the Aryans, who worshipped humanoid demigods and traveled through the skies in chariots described as having a thunderous noise and emitting a fiery red glare. These flying ships were equipped with described as fiery beams. The Aryans enslaved the people of India with the oppressive caste system and enforced the worship of these supposed gods, which still exist in Hinduism today. The Dogon people of West Africa claim to have contact with intelligent non-humans from Sirius who introduced advanced civilization in Sumer. The Zulu tribe of South Africa claim the same thing. They describe a reptilian-like species as well as a fish-like species that they symbolize with the dolphin and whale. The The subject of ancient aliens is far too vast to cover in a short video. But the important thing to remember is that all of recorded history is full of them. It is only in the modern era that humans have been led to believe that mankind sits atop the food chain. But one must use their best discernment when studying this subject, because the waters have been thoroughly muddied with misinformation, more so than any other subject, which tells us that there is much to hide.